We'll officially start. Welcome to the last McDermond event. We saved the highest and best of our programs for last. I'm very excited for today. And I want to welcome students, family, and friends to the McDermond Center presentation of the McDermond Medal for Excellence in Entrepreneurship. This is the highest honor given by the McDermond Center. A special welcome today to our recipients' family, wife Carrie, and their 3 children, Yates, which one? Quincy, and Renner. Welcome. We're happy to have you here. Welcome also to our alumni guests that are viewing live via Zoom. I want to thank the Development Alumni Engagement Center for co-sponsoring today's event and making sure that we have the alumni community visiting in. I also want to welcome Dr. Lori White, the 21st president of DePaul University, who will be presenting the McDermond Medal to our recipient in just a few moments. I'm Steve Foudy, the director of the McDermond Center and executive director of the Hubbard Center for Student Engagement. For most of you probably know me already. For many of you, you may not understand what it takes to get the medal. So I want to go through what the requirements are to even be nominated, let alone selected. To receive the honor, the recipient of the McDermond C Medal must have demonstrated the following attributes. The individual has been instrumental in the formation or growth of an entrepreneurial business venture themselves in a small or large organization. Check. They have demonstrated a long record of excellence in leadership and management. Triple check probably on that one. As well as actively assisting others in establishing entrepreneurial businesses or initiatives. And you'll see he's in that in turbo drive right now. So, recipients have a proven history of unique displays of creativity and innovation in entrepreneurial leadership or entrepreneurial behavior within a larger organization. The individual is either a DePaul alum, check, a friend or a supporter of DePaul, or a gracious supporter of the state of Indiana. Today, Michael Langellier will join former prestigious honorees that include Dan Hassler, David Becker, Judson Green, Alan Hubbard, Jan Reese, Jeffrey Harmoning, Angie Hicks, Thomas Cooper, Megan Casey Glover, Justin Christian, Peter Rupert, and last year's recipient, David Trogdon. And that's just to name a few. Awesome. So anyone who knows Mike or has followed his journey can witness that he's been and continues to be a living testimony of the attributes of this award. And if you haven't followed his career, you will learn a lot more about his journey from Mike himself in just a few moments. But I do want to share a few highlights right now. Michael Langellier graduated cum laude, I don't know if I said that right, cum laude from DePaul University in 2004 with a major in communication. How many communication majors out there? A few. Okay. During his time as student at DePaul, Mike was involved in the Hartman Center Leadership Academy, a member of the Delta Upsilon fraternity, served as an ambassador's counselor, and participated in the Little Five his first year. Upon graduation, Mike was selected to be a member of the Governor Bob Orr, Indiana 2-year Entrepreneurship Fellow Program. Do we happen to have anybody that are going to be in the program this year? I know we have 5 or 6 that are in it this year, so okay. Not present at the moment. Great opportunity. I strongly encourage it. If any of you underclassmen there, I would strongly encourage you looking at the Orr Fellow program. From there, he went on to Experian Decision Analytics for 4 years, eventually directing their account management program. Mike left Experian to become co-founder and CEO of MyJibe, a personal finance and online banking software platform. A year and a half later, he sold that company to MX. I've been in entrepreneurship all my life, and a year and a half selling after you start it is pretty much unheard of. Usually it's a 5 to 10 year commitment if you're lucky. So congratulations on that. It's a great milestone. Where he continued to lead as Vice President of Strategic Partnerships for a little over a year. Mike was then selected as the next president and CEO for TechPoint, a job I applied for and didn't get, by the way. And I'm very glad because he did a bang-up job, much better than I would have done. So, and for those of you who don't know about TechPoint, it's a nonprofit tech ecosystem growth accelerator delivering talent, venture capital, and promotion to Indiana companies. It was during his 9.5 years at TechPoint that Mike and I really connected and worked together on several different initiatives as I was in the tech community as either a CFO or controller of startups. Mr. Langellier, hard to say that, but has also spent time giving back by serving on various boards, including the Orr Fellowship, Star Financial Network, and Community Physicians Network. Today, Mike serves as partner and head of new ventures at High Alpha in downtown Indianapolis, where he helps create and fund B2B software companies and partners with founders to build organizations that reach their full potential. But probably his most important current role is that of dad. To 3 children, Renner, Quincy, and Yates, we met them earlier. Could they be future Tigers? Maybe. Mike has received several awards and honors along the way, including Indiana's highest civilian honor given, the Sagamore of the Wabash, awarded in 2017 by then Governor Eric Holcomb. 40 Under 40 by the Indianapolis Business Journal in 2014. Young Professional of the Year by the TechPoint Mirror Awards in 2013. So now you've been given a little bit of insight into why he was selected as one of 5 nominees that the McDermond Center sends over. You have to nominate. The alumni community nominates. The McDermond Center staff, then we look over and pick 5 of our top selections, and we send it to the development community, and their team selects the winner. So now you see why. At this time, it is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Lori White, 21st President of DeVal University, to award Mike Langellier 2004 with the Robert McDermond Medal for Excellence and Entrepreneurship.
Mike, it's great to welcome you and your family back to DePaul, including the future Tigers. So no pressure whatsoever, but, I do have the power to sign admissions letters. So, I can do that right here, and we can take good care of that. Mike, you are an incredible representative of what it means to be liberally educated. I think there are many folks today who question the value of a liberal arts degree, and you have demonstrated with a degree in communication that you can do all things. And so thank you for reflecting so positively, not only on the liberal arts experiences that you received, but on DePaul as well. And it gives me great pleasure to officially award you this medal. So will you come up here, please, to the front? Great. So Michael, having demonstrated a lifetime career of entrepreneurship, advising, and investing, impeccable leadership skills in managing high-growth organizations, and giving back to your alma mater and your community in so many ways, it gives me great pleasure to award you, Michael Langellier, with the Robert C. McDermond Medal for Excellence in Entrepreneurship. How about a round of applause? I don't want to mess up the nice thing.
You're too tall.
Perfect, I know. There you go.
Thank you.
And here's this. And somebody probably wants to take a picture of us. There you go.
Kind of move away from this so we can get a couple good pictures there.
Make sure to get your shoes.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. You can go sit over there if you want. All right. Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you, President White, for presenting this great honor today. And now it is my great honor and pleasure to sit down with Mike in a fireside chat format so you can learn more about Mike himself, about his amazing journey from liberal arts graduate to entrepreneur, startup investor, and tech ecosystem builder. All right. If we have time, there will be time for Q&A at the end, so if you have a question, please make sure that you say that. Go. Where to start?
Now that you've gotten me sufficiently embarrassed.
Yeah. We're gonna have to make sure. There may be a size limit. In the future. All right. Well, I am really excited to so you can hear more of his story. I shared just the highlights, but we're going to get some behind the scenes and some really what it's like when you launch your career out of DePaul and all that's happened since then. So when and how did you get interested in entrepreneurship and business as a communications major at DePaul?
Well, first off, it's wonderful to be back at DePaul, and thanks all for coming. I know that you're in the home stretch of the end of the semester. There's a lot of pressure to finish well, so thanks for coming out and joining. And thank you as well, Steve, McDermond Center staff, Dr. White, for this honor. It's wonderful and was a wonderful surprise to get the call from you, Steve, and so I'm very grateful. I did not. Entrepreneurship was not initially my path. I grew up in a small town in Illinois, and as a small town kid that did well in school and liked science, and it was sort of the natural path that I was going to be a doctor. And so I actually came to DePaul expecting to be pre-med, and then through shadowing a doctor and kind of considering what the path would be to ultimately becoming it, I decided that I didn't want to do that, which was I'm sure many of you have gone through that process of thinking that the thing you wanted to be and to do, you didn't ultimately want to once you started to get exposure to it. And that was me. And through sophomore year, I started to take other classes, English, communication, some of these classes that I thought could serve me well into the future. And bringing it back to the McDermond Center, somewhere, I think it was maybe second semester, sophomore year, I took Intro to Econ. And I realized that what I loved about science was that it helped me to understand the world around me, the biological world, the anatomical world, the physical world, the mechanical world. And what econ taught me or exposed me to was how the kind of psychological world, the financial world, the markets operate, and it allowed me to explain how the world around me operated in a whole different way, why people make the choices that they do, why businesses do what they do, and those are the things that shape so much of our world. And that was very much an eye-opening kind of experience for me. But yet, at that time, I couldn't even have articulated myself as an entrepreneur or as a business person. It was ultimately through that initial exposure that came from econ, and then I took intro, micro, macro, financial accounting. I took financial markets and a whole bunch more econ classes that gave me a lot better kind of exposure and familiarity. And then I was very fortunate. Where's Sandy Smith? Yeah.
I was going to say, call out to Sandy over there.
Sandy, some of you have kind of second parents, hopefully, here at DePaul, and Sandy and Marcia Ellett were that for me. They were staff here, and Sandy was at the McDermond Center, and I was kind of an adopted McDermond Center student, thanks to Sandy, and that was a very formative experience for me because it gave me more exposure to business and entrepreneurship that I hadn't had previously. And then, as Steve referenced, the Orr Fellowship, actually prior to that, I did a winter term internship at Angie's List. And this was when Angie's List was young. It was probably 60 employees. For those of you that don't know, the Angie's List, or Angie Hicks is an alum. And so as a result, she got winter term, and this whole idea that you could do like a 3 to 4 week internship that most people are like, that's not a thing. Angie's List was receptive to, and so I did an internship at Angie's List, and it was my first exposure truly to business, and particularly startups, because Angie's List was in a startup stage at the time. And even though I was in an entry level job there that was not glamorous, I was sitting in a cube that was directly behind the COO at the time, Scott Brenton. And on a daily basis, I was interacting with Scott and with Angie and hearing how Scott was making very important decisions about, financing decisions and budget management decisions, growth versus cost-saving decisions. And even in the job that I was this kind of overly, I was naive to probably my my lowly role in the organization at the time. And I decided at the end of my internship, I saw an opportunity for Angie's List to basically eliminate my job. And I didn't care to go back to school. But by using software, saw a way that they could automate the work that I was doing and really help them kind of expand their presence online. And I had the gumption to say, hey, to ask Scott and Angie for a meeting to present this idea to them. And I'll never forget, we were sitting in one of the small little conference rooms. My wife, Carrie, actually was an OR fellow as well, and at Angie's List, so she knows the Angie's List experience. The conference room had a door. The door was the conference room table. It was they were very very quirky, a lot of quirky features at Angie's List, and I never forget. I walked through the business case for how we could kind of improve this part of the business, and Angie and Scott said, "Let's do it." And I thought, that can happen, like. And it went on to forever kind of impact that part of the business. And from that point on, I was hooked. And I was very fortunate through both that Angie's List experience and through some friends to learn about the OR Fellowship. The OR Fellowship is this kind of 2-year, somewhat like a mini MBA program, but it recruits a class of college seniors. It also recruits a class of employers, and helps to match those two together. And then it's a 2-year facilitated program, both with educational development and also professional development, network development. And it exposed me to the city of Indianapolis in a way that I would have never experienced it at a deeper level, and to really understand how it operates and who is influencing the development of the city, and fostered a love for me of kind of an adopted city that I now call home, having not grown up there. And we'll talk more about this later on, but that in and of itself not only had an impact on my trajectory as an entrepreneur, but it also had an impact on the next chapters of my life and what I would do kind of in more of a nonprofit and giving back capacity to help stimulate entrepreneurship otherwise. But those were formative experiences for me now as I look back, that I could not have articulated for myself the desire to be an entrepreneur, or that to even see that as a career path. But now as I look back, that were very, very formative. Ultimately, the opportunity for me to use, I think of, to me, entrepreneurship is my art. I don't have, there are a lot of people that have their art is some other creative endeavor. Sometimes the more traditional arts like music or painting or sculpture or something like that. For me, it's entrepreneurship, and it's essentially the ability to go build things and change things in the world around me via the vehicle of business. And I love that, whether it's building businesses, building programs. I love the ability to impact other people's lives by giving them. We find so much of our fulfillment and satisfaction through work, and our purpose through work in our society, and the ability to create opportunities for other people to have meaningful work that then kind of is enriching to their life has been just a tremendous experience for me.
That's awesome. That's great. I see that as art. I see that art too, because as a songwriter, going into software, I said you take ideas that don't exist and you make them reality. So that's a great point. Well, once the entrepreneur bug hits you, you kind of lived through 4 different chapters in your career. I've known about 3. I've been involved in about 3 of them, so I'm excited to hear. But walk us through the story.
Sure. So, as I said, with the OR Fellowship recruits not only a class of students but also a class of employers. And I was just very lucky that there were some excellent employers that were in that class. And there's a thing called Finalist Day, and Finalist Day is a day where you go interview. You identify employers that you're interested in. Employers identify individuals that they're interested in, and then you go through a series of interviews. And one of those, I interviewed with a variety of different companies in different industries. And one of those was a company called Baker Hill. It was a banking software company. And a gentleman named Mark Hill, who was the CEO and also co-founder of the company, was the person I interviewed with. And again, I had no context for who Mark was and the kind of what Baker Hill really was. But
hold it up closer.
Microphone up closer. Okay. I got a call from Angie Hicks actually that night, because Angie was on the board at the time, and she said, "Mike, you've been extended an offer to join the OR Fellowship," and that offer was from Baker Hill. And at the time, I didn't know or have an interest in banking, and oddly, I did not even really have a whole lot of familiarity or an interest in banking technology. But I believed in the program. I believed in that I believed in that I wanted to be part of this group of people, and I wanted to be part of what the Orr Fellowship was about. That I said yes. Even knowing that I didn't know if this company, I didn't choose the job, I didn't choose the company, but nonetheless, I took the leap. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made. And ultimately, then you think about the next steps that followed. I went and started a banking software company after that. And had I not had that experience at Baker Hill, I never would have even known. I would have, what I gained there was I was thrust into a position early on in my professional journey where I was out in the field with customers, essentially doing consulting. And I had no business doing it. I was an early 20-something with 50 and 60-somethings across the table from me who had been in the industry for decades. But I had the software and I had the data on my side, and I learned so much through that experience. And then I ultimately went into sales because I realized that I was essentially selling the product while I was out with the customer. I just wasn't getting paid for it. And I thought, well, I want to get paid for it. So I then went into sales after that. That experience was formative for me because I got exposed to this industry. I got exposed to technology. And then ultimately, this was at a time when banks and credit unions, it's hard to imagine now, but their online banking experiences were terrible, antiquated. They were still kind of in the old mode of competing with the bank across the street, not the bank across the country. And I just saw that there was going to be a need for these banks to be able to offer, if you're familiar with like Mint.com or Monarch or Quicken, some of these personal finance tools, that kind of capability online to their customers, and be able to help them more comprehensively with their financial lives, that was going to be needed. And we were going to go build software to provide to them. We did that, serendipitous chain of events. I won't go into all the details, but we were raising a round of financing. We were approached by 2 companies about acquisition. One of them was a company called MX out in the Salt Lake City area. It was a perfect fit, and ultimately we sold the company. And I spent the next year kind of splitting time between here and Salt Lake City as we integrated the company. And then, so that was sort of a continuous fintech entrepreneurship business experience, although one was with a more mature small business in Baker Hill. While I was there, got acquired by Experian, which was a large corporation that was going public, and so then I was part of a great big company. And then down to a brand new startup that was just a couple people, and then part of a bigger company that was growing very fast. And then I took a step off that journey, and I had, through my own entrepreneurial journey, spent time in Silicon Valley and had this conviction that the next generation of tech ecosystems, tech hubs, tech places needed to emerge in other parts around the country. And that Indianapolis should be one of those places so for those of you that know somewhat about the sports culture, the racing culture that kind of really identified Indianapolis, there are amazing stories about how all that came to be, and I started to become exposed to those stories, and I thought, the next thing needs to be tech, and I need to do something about it. Yes. And that's when then another serendipitous chain of events led to my becoming CEO of TechPoint, and seeing that as this, TechPoint's a nonprofit. And so it was then this platform to be able to build the infrastructure that was needed to enable other startups and even other big businesses to grow faster, attract talent, attract venture capital, and then ultimately grow more successfully. And I just had this vision that we could build an organization that could facilitate that for lots of other companies. And so that was an awesome journey. And it was through that journey that then I had an amazing board. One of those board members was an individual named Scott Dorsey. Scott was the co-founder and CEO of ExactTarget, which was acquired by Salesforce. And as I got to know him and build a relationship with him, we always talked about opportunities to work together. And ultimately, kind of that perfect timing aligns, and he asked me to come join at High Alpha. And so now I'm investing in early stage B2B software companies and starting companies through our venture studio. And we've now started almost 50 companies through our venture studio and invested in over 100 in total. So it's been really fun then to now get back to kind of private sector and building companies again.
I remember your TechPoint was going to be a 2 to 3 year gig.
Famous last words, yeah.
That ended up 9.5 years, yes. Right? Yeah, so you made such an impact there, and I think impact everywhere you've been. And I was out there watching it happen and watching TechPoint really grow. Big growth in the Mirror Awards while you were there. Even having to do the Mirror Awards during COVID, right?
Oh man, I remember that. Yes, in my track pants and red shoes.
Yep, and I lost to a DePaul alum, which was Karen Jung that year, on the Educator of the Year. So we were talking to each other afterward because we were all at home because it was during COVID, and so it was great to lose to a DePaul alum. That was awesome. So, all right, so now what are the most important things that you've learned through those 4 chapters that maybe these students could get some insight into today?
So I think one of the things that I didn't choose, but I was fortunate to land into, is that there's a predisposition coming out of college to focus a lot on what's the job, and I would say of the things to consider, that's the least important. I would say that one of the things that I didn't even know to consider as part of the search was not only that specific company, but also just the industry that they're in. And I would say the underlying message that I now have recognized is so important is to pursue growth. Look for companies and opportunities where that industry is growing, that company is growing, where you have leadership that has a growth mindset, because that begets so many more opportunities. What I found in working in high growth companies was that growth begets opportunities at a much faster rate than just kind of steady state or static companies can possibly create. If you're in a steady state, static, or even declining company, then the best you can do is hope to replace somebody that is above you in the org chart. And that just creates lots of, one, it takes a lot of time. It creates kind of more of a career ladder type of mentality, which is not a good fit for me. What I loved were more dynamic businesses where there were always new problems to solve, and there were always more problems to solve than what there were the people in the business to solve it. And what that begets is that then the people who are having to make decisions about what to do at the business are looking around, just looking for people who can go solve that problem, who can go do that thing. And what it begets is then opportunity for people who are younger and less experienced than the people who should actually go solve that problem, but who are ambitious and available to go do it. And that was a big story of my career. I was just, because I was ambitious, available, and driven by a vision to go do a thing, was afforded opportunities to step into positions that were beyond my age and experience. And I would say that has made all the difference. So I would just encourage everybody who's maybe, if you're considering, as one of the main factors as you're evaluating jobs, companies, industries, is look for which ones are growing. Because one, they're going to be more exciting, and they're going to open up doors and particularly open them up faster than what they probably would if you were evaluating more steady state companies. I would say the other is, the currency of life are really, in my experience, the currency of life has been credibility, skills, and relationships. And what I found was that the things that opened up doors for me were the things that provided credibility. The Orr Fellowship provided credibility. My prior achievements at companies like Baker Hill and Experian provided credibility. And then also the relationships that I formed. When I built relationships with people who were going on to do great things, and I had credibility from them that I could be successful, then they bet on me and opened up doors for me as well that then begot the next chapters in my life. So I would say those 3 things, of really investing in the currency of your own life, of relationships, of skills, and of credibility. And I think now I think about every role that I'm in as, wanting to make that a referenceable experience. Because ultimately, the next thing in your life, they're going to look back on, who can I check with to substantiate that this person can do the job. And it's very easy to go from job to job company to company and not cement, do I have a referenceable experience? And I had some roles where the referenceability was quantitative. I never thought that I would want to go into sales, had no ambitions of going into sales, decided to make the leap and do it. It was an awesome test of myself. It was a huge kind of pressure to have a number that I was responsible for achieving. It went really, really well. And as a result, I could always point back to, I achieved this number, right? That objective criteria was really important. There were some roles, though, that the results were qualitative, and it was harder to put a number to it. So knowing that there were people that I could reach out to and say, hey, go talk to so-and-so, and that they could speak to, what I did in that role, made a huge difference. And so I would encourage that intentionality as you step into those next roles as well, and just thinking about who could be a reference for you.
I'm going to go off script for just a minute because I think I've witnessed you also got to influence legislature and different things through Checkpoint too. You got exposure into really, to, like you said, your vision of Indianapolis I want to be a part of that, ultimately led you to be able to go to the Capitol building, right, and talk and help support entrepreneurship there. I don't know if you have a story about that or just talk a little about how that's probably nothing you saw coming, and the next thing you know, you're at the Capitol building. In the
categories of experiences that you're underprepared for. But we had a couple scenarios. We had several different scenarios. I did not, kind of advocacy, lobbying, legislative stuff was not considered a core part of my job. But there were a couple things that I knew would be instrumental in the future of the tech ecosystem. One of them was we needed to find ways we needed to find more vehicles for venture capital investment in Indiana, and there was an investment during the Daniels administration that there was a sale of a toll road in northern Indiana that yielded about $1 billion. That $1 billion was sitting in basically a savings account. And we learned about this. The governor at the time, Governor Pence, had kind of penciled this in as like this was an opportunity. But it needed a plan and it needed advocacy. So I found myself in a position believing that this could be, if we could take a portion of that money and if we could instead allocate it into venture capital investment, so it would create a return for the state, but rather than sitting in sort of fixed income, right, it can instead be invested into companies in our state, that it could create a win-win scenario. And but it was in the middle of the legislative session. I had never gone really to the State House and advocated before. I didn't really know these people that well. They were all longtime legislators. This was my kind of first time going for it, and we were late in process. But through amazing teamwork with some key folks on the governor's team and rallying of some key individuals in the tech ecosystem and putting a plan together, we were able to explain how this could be a win-win scenario, and we got it done. And something called the Next Level Fund, which allocated $250 million into venture capital investment in Indiana, ultimately to get invested into VC firms, to be invested into startup companies. It happened, and so that was one of those experiences where you just pour it in a kind of a concentrated amount of time, and then you walk out and you're like, we did it, and this is something that is going to have a long-lasting legacy. Was super gratifying.
And a lot of companies that we're all familiar with in Indianapolis got their start from getting that money. So it was really pivotal. Well, let's back up a little bit and go back to your time at DePaul. Mm-hmm. So your communications major, you shared a little bit. What were some memories and most impactful moments of your 4 years here? Other than Sandy being your second mother, right?
Yeah, that was significant.
That was a big one.
That was. That first econ class and internship was significant in my career direction. Hartman Center leadership and DU were the most significant in my relationship building. I would say, and even I went on the winter term scuba diving trip. Does the scuba diving trip still exist over winter term?
I don't think so. Not in the last couple of years.
I might have to find out.
Resurrect that one.
Resurrect that. that begot one of my favorite kind of pastime activities, and now something that I get the opportunity to do with my family. But that happened because I got the opportunity to learn how to scuba dive and get certified, and to do it here on for those of you that have not had the experience, I'm so sorry. There was a time when you could, during winter term, get classroom certified here at DePaul, do your pool scuba certification over here, and then we would leave for Cozumel, Mexico, and we did 30 dives in 10 days. It was awesome, so awesome. So not only a great memory, but also something that is now forever one of my favorite pastimes. And then study abroad experience. So how many folks have studied abroad? Good number. I studied abroad in Australia. Living for 6 months in another country was a tremendous growth experience for me, from an independence and from a love of travel. So I think all of these were things that, for the most part, were sort of outside of the classroom, but were things that were extremely formative for choosing my choice in career, the relationships that I built, and then ultimately what I love to do outside of work and life as well. And all those things were part of DePaul. That's awesome. We've been given the 5-minute warning here, so we'll get a little light here. In our going back and forth in email, you talked about a Little Five experience.
Oh, yeah, it was
and I
Little
haven't
Five.
learned about this either, but I said we got to bring this up.
Oh,
So
geez.
Little Five, your freshman year?
Yes.
Okay.
So I lived in Longden. There were 4 of us friends that banded a team together, and we decided we were gonna go for it. And I'd not been a biker, didn't train as much as I should, and we were. This was my first kind of exposure to Little Five, being a freshman. This is in the category of kind of embarrassing experiences at DePaul. I think we were in second to last at the time. Brian Bales, a good friend of mine. I think he actually might be joining. Hi, Brian, if you're on the line. We were on the same team in a group of others as well. I think we were second to last at the time. It was a caution lap. Somebody had wrecked, and so we were kind of had the pace car out in front of us, and we were just coasting for the first lap that I was out there. And I had this idea of what if I just sort of laid back, and then right when it's kind of green flag again, I give it a sprint. And I did it. And the guy behind me, the staff behind me, was yelling at me because apparently that you're not really supposed to do that. But green flag goes, I just start sprinting past all the other bikers, got to the front, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that this worked. I didn't know the rules, though, that apparently that caution lap counted as a lap. So I kept going after the first lap. I was going the second lap. Meanwhile, my teammate had already started, and we were both on the track at the same time. And I was already too late. I was already halfway around the track, and there was nothing I could do about it. And I had in my mind that I needed to then cause another caution flag in order so that I could get off the track. So I'm coming around in front of the stands, and I'm like, I've got a wreck. And so I deliberately crashed after passing the whole group. Deliberately crashed, tried to stay in the infield as best I could, but I was in front of the stands. It was so embarrassing. And then, meanwhile, I later find out that I should have just gotten off after the first lap, and it all would have been great. But I didn't know at the time. And then I had spent myself so much during that I promptly went over to the sideline and threw up. So that was my one and done Little Five experience. That was
no injuries.
Memorable. Nothing but my pride.
Okay,
yes,
very good.
Nothing but my pride.
Okay, go to Marvin's meal.
I mean, is there anything else on the menu other than just a GCB and fries? I think
Maybe
that
not.
was right,
That was
right
it?
down the middle of the fairway.
Cheese fries or just fries?
I just went regular.
You went regular
garlic.
fries. Okay, garlic fries.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know, Amanda. I don't know about time. Do we have time for any Q&A or not? Probably not. Okay. Well, we want to thank the alumni community for joining us. Again, let's give a round of applause to Mike for this great award. We were going to take a few pictures real quick, and then you'll have about 10 minutes if you want to stay up and talk, but we're going to get a few pictures first. But again, thank you so much. Thank you again, Mike. You deserve the award, and they've got to get to class, so I better let them go. Thank you.